Hi, it's Dr. Jack, and I'm reading Ozma of Oz, and I'm reading the next chapter, which is Billina Frightens the Gnome King. And here's Billina. Now, when Dorothy had entered the palace to make her guesses, and the Scarecrow was left with the Gnome King, the two sat in moody silence for several minutes. Then the monarch exclaimed in a tone of satisfaction, "Very good!" "Who is very good?" asked the Scarecrow. "The Machine Man. He won't mean to be wound up any more, for he has now become a neat ornament. Very neat indeed." "How about Dorothy?" the Scarecrow inquired. "Oh, she will begin to guess pretty soon," said the king cheerfully, "and then she will join my collection, and it will be your turn." The good Scarecrow was much distressed by the thought that his little friend was about to suffer the fate of Ozma and the rest of their party. But while he sat in gloomy reverie, a shrill voice suddenly cried, "Cut, cut, 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 cut." The Gnome King nearly jumped off his seat and was so startled. "Good gracious, what's that?" he yelled. "Why, it's Billina," said the Scarecrow. "What do you mean, making a noise like that?" shouted the king angrily as the yellow hen came from under the throne and strutted proudly around the room. "I've got a right to cackle, I guess," replied Billina. "I've just laid my egg." "What? Laid an egg in my throne room? How dare you do such a thing?" asked the king in a voice of fury. "I lay eggs wherever I happen to be," said the hen, ruffling her feathers and then shaking them into place. But thunderation! Don't you know that eggs are poison?" roared the king, while his rock-colored eyes stuck out in great terror. "Poison? Well, I declare," said Billina indignantly. "I'll have you know all my eggs are warranted strictly fresh and up to date. Poison indeed." "You don't understand," retorted the little monarch nervously. "Eggs belong only to the outside world, to the world on the earth's surface, where you came from. Here in the underground kingdom, they are poison, as I said, and we gnomes can't bear them around." "Well, you'll have to bear this one around," declared Billina, "for I've laid it." "Where?" asked the king. "Under your throne," said the hen. The king jumped 3 feet into the air, so anxious was he to get away from the throne. "Take it away! Take it away at once!" he shouted. "I can't," said Billina. "I haven't any hands." "I'll take the egg," said the Scarecrow. "I'm making a collection of Billina's eggs. There's one in my pocket now that she laid yesterday." Hearing this, the monarch hastened to put a good distance between himself and the Scarecrow, who was about to reach under the throne for the egg when the hen suddenly cried, "Stop!" "What's wrong?" asked the Scarecrow. "Don't take the egg unless the king will allow me to enter the palace and guess as the others have done," said Billina. "Pshaw!" returned the king. "You're only a hen. How could you guess my enchantments?" "I can try, I suppose," said Billina, "and if I fail, you will have another ornament." "A pretty ornament you'd make, wouldn't you?" growled the king. "But you shan't have your way. It will properly punish you for daring to lay an egg in my presence. After the Scarecrow is enchanted, you shall follow him into the palace. But how will you touch the objects?" "With my claws," said the hen, "and I can speak the word Eve as plainly as anyone. Also, I must have the right to guess the enchantments of my friends and to release them if I succeed." "Very well," said the king. "You have my promise." "Then," said Billina to the Scarecrow, "you may get the egg." He knelt down and reached underneath the throne and found the egg, which he placed in another pocket of his jacket, fearing that if both eggs were in one pocket, they would knock together and get broken. Just then a bell above the throne rang briskly, and the king gave another nervous jump. "Well, well," said he, with a rueful face, "the girl has actually done it." "Done what?" asked the Scarecrow. "She has made one guess that is right, and broken one of my neatest enchantments. By rickety, it's too bad. I never thought she would do it." "Do I understand she will now return to us in safety?" inquired the Scarecrow joyfully, wrinkling his painted face. "Of course," said the king fretfully, pacing up and down the room. "I always keep my promises, no matter how foolish they are. But I shall make an ornament of the yellow hen to replace the one I've just lost." "Perhaps you will, and perhaps you won't," murmured Billina calmly. "I may surprise you by guessing right." Guessing right, snapped the king. How should you guess right when your betters have failed, you stupid fowl? Billina did not care to answer this question, and a moment later the doors flew open and Dorothy entered leading the little Prince Evering by the hand. The Scarecrow welcomed the girl with a close embrace, and he would have embraced Evering too in his delight, but the little prince was shy and he shrank away from the painted Scarecrow, because he did not yet know his many excellent qualities. But there was little time for the friends to talk, because the Scarecrow must now enter the palace. Dorothy's success had greatly encouraged him, and they both hoped he would manage to make at least one correct guess. However, he proved as unfortunate as the others, except Dorothy, although he took a good deal of time to select his objects. Not one did the Scarecrow guess right. So he became a solid gold card receiver, and the beautiful but terrible palace awaited its next visitor. "It's all over," remarked the king with a sigh of satisfaction, "and it has been a very amusing performance, except for the one good guess the Kansas girl made. I am richer by a great many pretty ornaments." "It's my turn now," said Billina briskly. "Oh, I'd forgotten you," said the king, "but you needn't go in if you don't wish to. I will be generous and let you off." "No, you won't," replied the hen. "I insist upon having my guesses as you promised." "Then go ahead, you absurd feathered fool," grumbled the king as he caused the opening that led to the palace to appear once more. "Don't go, Billina," said Dorothy earnestly. "It isn't easy to guess those ornaments, and only luck saved me from being one myself. Stay with me and we'll go back to the land of Eve together. I'm sure this little prince will give us a home." "Indeed I will," said Evering with much dignity. "Don't worry, my dear," cried Billina with a cluck that was meant for a laugh. "I may not be human, but I'm no fool if I'm a chicken." "Oh, Billina," said Dorothy, "you haven't been a chicken in a long time. Not since you've been grown up." "Perhaps that's true," answered Billina thoughtfully. "But if a Kansas farmer sold me to someone, what would he call me, a hen or a chicken?" "You are not a Kansas farmer, Billina," replied the girl, "and you said—" "Never mind that, Dorothy. I'm going. I won't say goodbye, because I'm coming back. Keep up your courage, for I'll see you a little later." Then Billina gave several loud cluck-cluck that seemed to make the fat little king more nervous than ever, and marched through the entrance into the enchanted palace. "I hope I've seen the last of that bird," declared the monarch, seating himself again in his throne and mopping the perspiration from his forehead with his rock-colored handkerchief. "Hens are bothersome enough at their best, but when they can talk, they're simply dreadful." "Billina's my dear friend," said Dorothy quietly. "She may not always exactly be polite, but she means well, I'm sure." The next chapter is called Purple, Green, and Gold, and I'm going to read it. The yellow hen, stepping high with an air of vast importance, walked slowly over the rich velvet carpets of the splendid palace, examining everything she met with her sharp little eyes. Billina had a right to feel important, for she alone shared the Gnome King's secret and knew how to tell the objects that were transformations from those that had never been alive. She was very sure that her guesses would be correct, but before she began to make them, she was curious to behold all the magnificence of this underground palace, which was perhaps one of the most splendid and beautiful places in any fairyland. As she went through the room, she counted the purple ornaments, and although some were small and hidden in queer places, Billina spied them all, and found the entire 10 scattered about the various rooms. The green ornaments she did not bother to count, for she thought she could find them all when the time came. Finally, having made a survey of the entire palace and enjoyed its splendor, the yellow hen returned to one of the rooms where she had noticed a large purple footstool. She placed a claw upon this and said, "Eve." And at once the footstool vanished, and a lovely lady, tall and slender and most beautifully robed, stood before her. The lady's eyes were round with astonishment for a moment, for she could not remember her transformation, nor imagine what had restored her to life. "Good morning, ma'am," said Billina in her sharp voice. "You're looking quite well, considering your age." "Who speaks?" demanded the Queen of Eve, drawing herself up proudly. "Why, my name's Bill, by rights," answered the hen, who was now perched upon the back of a chair, "though Dorothy has put scallops on it and made it Billina. But the name doesn't matter. I've saved you from the Gnome King, and you are slave no longer." "Then I thank you for the gracious favor," said the Queen with graceful curtsy. "But my children, tell me, I beg of you, where are my children?" And she clasped her hands in anxious entreaty. "Don't worry," advised Billina. pecking at a tiny bug that was crawling over the chair back. "Just at present they are out of mischief and perfectly safe, for they can't even wiggle." "What mean you, O kindly stranger?" asked the queen, striving to repress her anxiety. "They're enchanted," said Billina, "just as you have been, all that is, except the little fellow Dorothy picked out. And the chances are that they have been good boys and girls for some time, because they couldn't help it." "Oh, my poor darlings!" cried the queen with a sob of anguish. "Not at all," returned the hen. "Don't let their condition make you unhappy, ma'am, because I'll soon have them crowding round you to bother and worry you as naturally as ever. Come with me, if you please, and I'll show you how pretty they look." There's the Queen of Eve with Billina. She flew down from her perch and walked into the next room, the queen following. As she passed a low table, a small green grasshopper caught her eye, and instantly Billina pounced upon it and snapped it up in her sharp bill, for grasshoppers are a favorite food with hens, and they usually must be caught quickly before they can hop away. It might easily have been the end of Ozma of Oz had she been a real grasshopper instead of an emerald one, but Billina found the grasshopper hard and lifeless, and suspecting it was not good to eat, she quickly dropped it instead of letting it slide down her throat. "I might have known better," she muttered to herself, "for where there is no grass there can be no live grasshoppers. This is probably one of the king's transformations." A moment later she approached one of the purple ornaments, and while the queen watched her curiously, the hen broke the Gnome King's enchantment, and a sweet-faced girl, whose golden hair fell in a cloud over her shoulders, stood beside them. "Ivana!" cried the queen, "my own Ivana!" And she clasped the girl to her bosom and covered her face with kisses. "That's all right," said Billina contentedly. "Am I a good guesser, Mr. Gnome King? Well, I guess." Then she disenchanted another girl, whom the queen addressed as Ivrose, and afterwards a boy named Ivardo, who was older than his brother Ivring. Indeed, the yellow hen kept the good queen exclaiming and embracing for some time, until 5 princesses and 4 princes, all looking very much alike, except for differences in size, stood in a row beside their happy mother. The princesses were named Ivana, Evrose, Evella, Everine, and Evedna, while the princes were named Evrob, Evrington, Evardo, and Evroland. Of these, Evardo was the eldest and would inherit his father's kingdom and be crowned King of Eve when he returned to his own country. He was a grave and quiet youth and would doubtless rule his people wisely and with justice. Billina, having restored all the royal family of Eve to their proper forms, now began to select the green ornaments, which were the transformations of the people of Oz. She had little trouble in finding these, and before long all 26 of the officers, as well as the private, were gathered around the yellow hen, joyfully congratulating her upon their release. The 37 people who were now alive in the rooms of the palace knew very well that they owed their freedom to the cleverness of the yellow hen, and they were earnest in thanking her for saving them from the magic of the Gnome King. "Now," said Billina, "I must find Ozma. She is sure to be here somewhere, and of course she is green, being from Oz, so look around, you stupid soldiers, and help me in my search." For a while, however, they could discover nothing more that was green, but the queen, who had kissed her 9 children once more, and could now find time to take an interest in what was going on, said to the hen, "Mayhap, my gentle friend, it is the grasshopper whom you seek." "Of course it's the grasshopper!" exclaimed Billina. "I declare I'm nearly as stupid as these brave soldiers. Wait here for me, I'll go back and get it." So she went into the room where she had seen the grasshopper, and presently Ozma of Oz, as lovely and dainty as ever, entered and approached the Queen of Eve, greeting her as one high-born princess greets another. "But where are my friends the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman?" asked the girl ruler, when these courtesies had been exchanged. "I'll hunt them up," replied Billina. "The Scarecrow is solid gold, and so is Tik-Tok. But I don't exactly know what the Tin Woodman is, because the Gnome King said he had been transformed into something funny." Ozma eagerly assisted the hen in her quest, and soon the Scarecrow and the Machine Man, being ornaments of shining gold, were discovered and restored to their accustomed forms. But search as they might, in no place could they find a funny ornament that might be the transformation of the Tin Woodman. "Only one thing can be done," said Ozma at last, "and that is to return to the Gnome King and oblige him to tell us what has become of our friend." "Perhaps he won't," suggested Billina. "He must," returned Ozma firmly. "The king has not treated us honestly, for under the mask of fairness and good nature, he entrapped us all, and we would have been forever enchanted had not our wise and clever friend the Yellow Hen found a way to save us." "The king is a villain," declared the Scarecrow. His laugh is worse than another man's frown, said the private with a shudder. I thought he was honest, but I was mistaken, remarked Tick-Tock. My thoughts are usually correct, but it is Smith and Tinker's fault if they sometimes go wrong or do not work properly. Smith and Tinker made a very good job of you, said Ozma kindly. I do not think they should be blamed if you are not quite perfect. Thank you, replied Tick-Tock. Then, said Billina in her brisk little voice, let us all go back to the Gnome King and see what he has to say for himself. So they started for the entrance, Ozma going first, with the Queen and her train of little princes and princesses following. Then came Tick-Tock and the Scarecrow with Billina perched upon his straw-stuffed shoulder. The 27 officers and the private brought up the rear. As they reached the hall, the doors flew open before them, but then they all stopped and stared into the domed cavern with faces of astonishment and dismay. For the room was filled with the mail-clad warriors of the Gnome King, rank after rank standing in an orderly array. The electric lights upon their brows gleamed brightly. Their battle axes were poised as if to strike down their foes, yet they remained motionless as statues, awaiting the word of command. And in the center of this terrible army sat the little king upon his throne of rock, but he neither smiled nor laughed. Instead, his face was distorted with rage and most dreadful to behold. Another cliffhanger. We'll find out what happens tomorrow as they face the Gnome King's wrath. I'll see you tomorrow.